And you never know what kind of opportunities come your way and knock at your door. Just take them and grow.
The West, Kini Kase to the people in the East, and Namaste mere pyare deshwasiyo as Modi ji says, and hello to the world. Today we have with us Ms. Zitin Munshi. She started her own venture, Next Mile Company, amidst this pandemic. A passionate advocate of sustainable development goals, she believes a brighter future can be created by all of us. Hello, ma'am, and thank you for accepting our invitation for the podcast.
Hi, Manvi, and thank you so much for this very, very flattering introduction. And welcome to everybody, to all the listeners, and to all the viewers. Thank you so much. And a big, big, big thank you to the Mitti Ke Rang team for organizing this and giving me a chance to share about my experience in Nagaland.
Okay, so today's topic is like what is life in the East while we come from the West, and while I was reading about your bio, I found out that you have spent most of your life in the West, I should say. And so my list of questions are ready, first of all. It says that how tough was it to come from the financial capital of the country by the seashore to a smaller city in the mountains?
Great question, Manvi. So thank you for that. And also, I would like to, thank all the viewers and the listeners again for removing time, and coming and listening or watching this conversation. So back to your question. Um, in one word, it was challenging. I won't I won't deny it. It was challenging. Just imagine somebody like me who's spent not a few years, but 3 decades almost of my life in the financial capital in a very developed city, almost an urban jungle. And then I pick up everything and go to the other side, almost the other corner of the country, which is, like you mentioned, a smaller city amidst the mountains. So of course it was challenging, it was hard, but I would say that it was not as hard as I thought it to be. Like, I had painted a picture in my head, and then it wasn't as challenging. And the reason for that is only and only the people of Nagaland. The main reason is that the people are so warm, so welcoming, and so inclusive. They never made me feel that I am from somewhere else. I'm not from the state. I'm not even from the northeast region, of the country, and I'm from the other side. I don't know their language. I do know a bit now, but back then I didn't. It's been 10 months here now. And people are very, very welcoming, very inclusive, and they never make me feel away from home. So that's what made it less hard, I can say. So that's really the very long answer to your very short question.
No,
Yeah.
it was not a long one. It was really a nice one to hear that people are so welcoming in the Northeast. And let me shoot you my next question. That is, it's okay. It's challenging for you. I can totally understand. But what was the
Yep.
immediate reaction of the your family, friends, all the immediate ones? The immediate reaction of the immediate people.
Right. Thanks for that question, Manvi. It's a great question. And yes, Touchwood, I've been very lucky to have very, very supportive family. My parents have always encouraged me to take new challenges, to look at bold decisions, professionally, especially in the last 2 years, actually. So that has been very empowering in a way. So of course, I mean, it's not as simple as I'm putting it out there. So I remember one conversation with my dad, and I said, okay, dad, I've decided this assignment has come in Nagaland, and I'm moving, from Mumbai to Nagaland for this assignment. And he was like, great, beta, it's a great opportunity, good exposure, but just check up on the security situation. And of course that time, out of respect, you just say that, yes, dad, it's all fine. I've checked up with my colleague, she's based there, she's from there, and it's all safe, it's all under control. But of course I wanted to tell him, dad, have you forgotten that I went to Africa last year for a 6-month assignment, which is a completely different continent altogether. So of course now my dad clearly will know what I really wanted to say thanks to this conversation, which is public. But so that was one. And I think I also recall, my paternal grandmother, when I told her that, I'm going to Nagaland, she's a little hard of hearing. So she, I told her I'm going for work to Nagaland, and she's like, where? And I said Nagaland, and she said Nagaland, and I said yes, and then she said, you know, you I think it's very far away. I'm translating this from Kashmiri, but she basically said it's very far away, no? And I said yes, it is. And then she said, but it is duty. You must go. You should go. So that was very heartwarming, and it was great. So all in all, I think family and even close friends, they've always given me positive vibes to sort of look at something in a different way, explore something new. And that has been a very, very important factor for me to even take those leaps of faith and take on those crazy adventures, as one would call it. So it's, I'm really lucky. I really consider myself as to be very, very lucky. So yeah.
Well, post this podcast, your father will be like, wow, हमारी बेटी ने कर दिखाया. She'll be really happy for you. He'll be really happy for you as well. And now, as you said, that the people are all very welcoming and are a go-to kind of a
Yes.
people. So what cultural
Yes.
differences could you see? Maybe eating, dressing habit, or anything, or the bunch of differences that you see. Please list out.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So it's not like you mentioned cultural, but yes, culture is a huge aspect of the real difference that one sees. For a person like me who's urban bred, right, in the other side of the country, from the financial capital, of course, there were a lot of differences, and perhaps, I can list out a few examples that might sort of bring out these stark differences, more clearly. One really, of course, was starting with food, my favorite thing, right? Food. So food, of course, was divided into two big chunks of differences that I noticed. One was really the cuisine by itself. So a lot of my hostel mates, they often say that, thank God, then at least you eat egg. Otherwise, so and so the reason for that is that Naga cuisine Naga cuisine is heavily non-vegetarian. And while people say that it's impossible for vegetarians or vegetarians like me to survive here, I would refute that and say that that's not true. Of course, options when you go out to eat at restaurants and stuff, especially in Kohima, are pretty limited for vegetarians and vegetarians. But largely speaking, I think I've got a taste or richer taste of local produce, of organic produce, which I buy from the ladies by the streets, and that's the bestest experience. Because if you throw a little bit of nagamis, you will end up with a few more pieces of brinjal or a few more berries. Like yesterday, I was talking to one of the ladies, and I was like, okay, kimanse and all, like how much does it cost? And she said this much, and then she started pouring more berries, and I'm like, okay, wait, I'm alone, I'll have to finish that whole thing, or I'll have to just distribute it in the whole hostel. So just stop, this is fine. And so that happens, right? And then of course one part is cuisine, and of course the taste as well. So for all those who may not know, I'm not sure if you know as well, but the world's spiciest naturally grown chili is found in Nagaland.
Okay, I
So
wasn't aware.
that yeah, that's called bujalokia, and there are even competitions of eating bujalokia at the Hornbill Festival. So I think the last winner had eaten 7 bujalokias in 15 seconds or something like that, which is pretty crazy, because the minute you touch it, also you cannot touch your hand anywhere else, because then you're just going to burn. Even your fingers start burning if your skin is sensitive. So so just the spice, and then I, for one, cannot take spice. I just cannot take spice. So that's that's one stark difference there. So one part of it is cuisine. The second part really is the eating habits and timings. So for instance, I've been born and brought up in a household where there are 3 meals. You have breakfast in the morning, and then there's lunch, of course, during midday, so around 12:31, and then there's dinner between 8:30 and 9. And when I came here, the first thing I observed was, hmm, there seems to be no breakfast. It's directly chawal and dal and those things at between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So there are 2 meals here in Nagaland. People eat only 2 meals: one in the morning between 8 and 10, and then one early evening, which is between say 5 or 5 to 6:30. So that's the time when they eat early dinner. And that was new to me, because I had not, of course it is a common thing, in this side of the country and even parts of Nepal, but the thing is that I was not exposed to that. So living that life every day becomes a little difficult. So there are differences, but I've made my way around it. I'm a very jugadu person that way. So I've made my way around it to say that, okay, I'm going to have my breakfast in the morning, pack my lunch, have it at 12:30 in office, and then sort of have dinner and cook it a little bit later. So I go to the kitchen, to the mess kitchen a little later than everybody else. So I'm usually alone when I'm cooking, but unless there's an anomaly and somebody is eating late that day, then they would probably, the timing would coincide. But usually that's really one aspect. So food, is a huge difference in both these things. The second aspect would be just a sense of time. So when I was born and brought up in Bombay, of course, you expect it to become slightly dark by 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock. And here, the sunset time, of course, sunset and sunrise time actually differs from season to season. So right now, the sunset time is somewhere between 5:30 and 5:45, and it's pitch dark at 6 o'clock. So you feel like it would have been 8 o'clock in Bombay, but
My God.
it's only 6 o'clock. You look at the watch and you're like, it's only 6. Okay. But so that happens. And of course, in winter, it's even earlier. So between 4:30 and 5, it's very, very dark. So
4:30 dark?
yeah. Yes. So that that sense of timing gets, and of course there have been debates, through generations about the fact that we should have two time zones for the country. But anyway, this is what it is, and we have one time zone, and we got to live it that way. So that was the second, big factor. The third big factor is seasons. Like I mentioned about seasons and the timing, everything depends on seasons. So right from the type of fruit you get, the vegetables you will encounter in the shops, the conversations that you will have with people. Oh, it's so hot today. Oh, it was like, raining 3 hours back. Um, and now it's suddenly, very humid. And, my hostel mates often tell me that, Zitan, how it is, Kohima, you have 4 seasons in one day, of course. But there is also, like, season by season, you see different seasons. So in Mumbai, for me, I've just seen 2 seasons in Mumbai, where there is either, you have torrential rainfall, which is monsoon, or you have summer, which is less warm. It has a spectrum. Is less warm, super warm, and then hot and humid. But that so here it's like, you have a chilly winter, which is followed by, beautiful spring. And spring is my favorite season here, because you get to see cherry blossoms, apple blossoms, peach blossoms, all types of blossoms, and the city looks just beautiful.
Wow.
And so you have that, and then you have, of course, a brief period of summer. The sun gods are very shy here. So I'll give you an example. I remember one of my friends, Choba Mandla, she had put up a post on her, social media. It was basically a picture of a huge photoshopped washing machine next to her and a pile of clothes in her hand. And it was bright sunny. Okay, that day was complete anomaly. It was super sunny that day in Kohima. And the caption said, "This is what we do on on a sunny day." So you're basically washing all your clothes, which have piled up through the last weeks because it is sunny. And then of course there's monsoon, which we're in the thick of monsoon right now, and that forms a chunk of the year here, almost 6 months. And again, monsoon is a time when you test your physical fitness. And let me give you an example here. It really tests your patience of how sort of fast you can run to the terrace to save your clothes from getting drenched the minute you see a few raindrops, because that's kind of a very important aspect there. You don't want your clothes super wet. But so then there's monsoon, and then of course we have a brief period of autumn. So it's a beautiful, the entire journey through the year is amazing. And now I've spent almost 10 months, so I've seen maximum part of that journey. So it's very beautiful. So I think that would really be the third big aspect of really seasons, and how that was different from Mumbai. And then really the fourth aspect would be something like something very different, like the terrains. Going back to your first question, which is where you said I was by the seashore and now I'm in the mountains. So of course, hairpin bends. The roads are just super curved, and curved roads and me don't go together very well.
Okay.
You can ask my colleagues. Uh, they will very fondly recall a not so pleasant ride from Kohima city to Kifri district. Kifri district is a little over 250 kilometers from Kohima, and it's a 10-hour road journey. And during that journey, I threw up 4 times.
Oh my
And of course, I gave a million other false alarms to the driver to stop the car. So we didn't really stop the car 4 times. We stopped it, I don't know. I don't even recall how many times. But it doesn't go very well. I remember during that trip, something very interesting happened. So the fourth time I threw up, I was just so exhausted, and we were in Miluri town, which is not very, very far, but one can't really get there any other way except the car. And I was so exhausted. I gargled my mouth after I threw up, and I just sat by the roadside. I just sat on the road down, and I kept staring at the driver, and I'm like, Amu. Amu means brother in Lotha dialect. Lotha is one of the tribes of Nagaland. And I said, Amu, मैं चल के जाऊंगी यहाँ से
Oh God.
Kifri. I'm going to walk and go to Kifri from here. And he looked at me and he smiled very kindly and he said, चल के जाएगा, 4 दिन लगेगा. Like it'll take you 4 days. Okay, if you walk from here. So, we were laughing about it, but of course, I quietly got up, went inside the car, and, we went ahead. After that, it was fine. But that's really how bad the relationship between curved roads and me is. In terms of, even, I would say, even after spending almost 2 decades, going from Mumbai to Himachal to visit my maternal grandparents, I've almost spent all my, school and college vacations in Himachal. I somehow still haven't improved in terms of I guess there's a slight improvement, but it's not very stark in terms of, me and throwing up on curved roads. So that, of course, terrain was another, differentiating factor or difference that I observed. I think the next factor would probably be culture, the dressing habits, as you mentioned. Of course, there are 17 tribes. The first time I saw all of them together in their cultural dresses was during the Hornbill Festival. For all the listeners and the viewers who do not know about Hornbill Festival, it is basically a celebration of all the cultures and the tribes in Nagaland. It happens every year between December 1st and 10th. And it was so colorful. I just fell in love instantly with all the designs, all the colors, all the accessories. It was just amazing. So that was something that was, of course, very different for me to see because I've not encountered that before. And so that was the other thing. And of course, in general, just life. Life has been different here. If you talk about, say, just moving from a cozy home with family and then moving into a hostel where you're cooking in a community kitchen, talking to different people. At full capacity, my hostel has 45 people almost. So that's a lot of people, right? And then you keep meeting new people, you listen to the language, you pick up the language a little bit, and you interact differently. And of course, even in terms of facilities, Bombay had set the bar so high. I don't remember the last time we had a power cut. And remember I messaged you 2 hours ago saying that Manvi, we have a power cut. I don't know if we can do this properly now. But so power cuts are frequent. I mean, frequent is a relative term, but if you're used to 24/7 power, of course any power cut is frequent then. So power cuts happen, and then of course you're used to high speed internet and all those things, and sometimes it just doesn't work. For instance, I was at a public webinar. It was a global webinar, and I was talking. I started my speech, I started talking, I started interacting with the audience, and then I didn't see the messages coming by saying that your video is frozen, cannot see your video. And I kept speaking, okay, for 2 minutes straight, and then suddenly the moderator is like, ma'am, your video is stuck, could you please switch to audio?
Okay.
And then, of course, I was so embarrassed because I had this weird expression and there was a global audience watching me for 2 minutes frozen in that weird expression. But then you just have to be patient, with the internet and the facilities. can't really do anything. Exactly. So that's also been a difference that has been observed, in my movement. So those are really the few aspects. Of course, there are millions of other differences, but these are the ones that come top of mind.
That was
Yes.
really a lot to hear, and it's like so much of difference
Yeah.
goes around to the east, to the west. Like if we start writing, I think if we start
Yeah.
talking, this can go for hours and hours long. But yeah, you are doing very
That's
good,
true.
I should say then, because today our internet is working. We are we are not on
Yes.
electrical light, and we are sitting in the balcony, so everything is fine.
Yes.
So
Yes.
my next question would be, what are the new opportunities that you have discovered after you moved here?
That's a great question, actually. And I think when just have a clean atmosphere, you have fresh air to breathe, you have a balcony like this with a view like that, all the greenery around. You just have to climb one floor and you're at the hostel terrace looking at mountains around you and hills. You just need to open the office window and you see a range of mountains, right in front of you. So it's beautiful. It also at the same time, makes you think, makes you reflect very deeply about life, about what you want to do, what else can you do, go beyond your usual. And so perhaps I can share two examples of those kind of opportunities. One really would be, and these are both opportunities I believe for my own personal growth. One would be really I started rewriting my blog again. I used to write a travel blog when I had moved to Africa for 6 months. I started it then, and then I took it a step further when my school friend suggested that perhaps you can start an Instagram page. And I think in the last 9 months it's done pretty well for itself. So I'm happy about that because that also helps to bring out awareness about the region and the limited travel that I've done. But whatever travel I've done and whatever the hidden gems are of Meghalaya, of parts of Guwahati, and of course Nagaland, I've started becoming more regular on that. So that's one thing. And secondly, would be really the professional side of it, but also personal because it is a bold step that I believe I've taken, something that I've not done before. And it was in my mind since a long time, but now finally I'm putting it into shape. And it's basically to think about, okay, I have an assignment here, yes, but can I do something more? Can I take, another leap? So in that vein, I thought, okay, let me set up my own venture and look at how I can sort of empower businesses so that they can grow and at the same time create social and environmental positive change, and how those two interrelate with each other, because a lot of times those are looked at as separate aspects, but then they're very closely related and they can fuel each other. So that's really the idea Next Mile Co is coming from. So really happy about that, and I've had a huge set of supportive friends and family, of course, who have always, like I mentioned earlier as well, been very encouraging and very, very open. Positivity is sort of brimming to the core, so that helps a lot. So those have been the two opportunities, big opportunities, I would say, apart from the many others. But yeah, these are the main two opportunities that I've seen since the time I've moved here.
And I hope your
Yeah.
next mile reaches many more miles to come and gets
Thank you
covered
so
with
much.
the miles. Yeah, thank you. Not an issue. So
Thanks for
these
time.
were all just ho gaya cultural questions. Now let's come to the main chunk of things that I have for you. That is, let's have the
Okay.
rapid fire. Let's see what you love the most, the east or the west. So play yourself.
Okay.
So my first one will be Bombay or Kohima.
What? That is a difficult choice now. Okay, I guess Bombay is first love, and then therefore Kohima is second love. Yeah.
Play it safe. My next question will be financially rich or culturally rich?
Cannot make an option there. I just want to stand on the fence. I sort of would say both. Best of both worlds.
Okay, so as I saw that you were going on talking about how Hornbill Festival is, the culture, the beauty, the dresses, everything. So let me put on this one for you. That's Hornbill Festival or Ganpati?
Oh, okay. I guess Ganpati would be fun and frolic since times immemorial, but Hornbill definitely would be a new form of fun and frolic for me, which I've just, discovered. So yes.
Okay, again, you're playing very safe in this rapid fire, I must say. My next one will be smart city or a metropolitan city?
I guess that'll be a difficult one to answer because I'm still waiting for Kohima to become a smart city. So of course, for all the people who are, watching and viewing and listening, if you're not familiar with the smart city mission, it is basically a government of India mission to sort of holistically develop less developed cities. And Kohima is one of the 100 smart cities, and it's still in the pipeline. So I would like Kohima to sort of lead by example, and then I think I'll be able to answer that question in a more fair manner.
Okay, then I shall get back to you once Kohima becomes a smart city. Let's wait for the answer.
Absolutely.
So that's all from
Yes.
my rapid fire round, which I wanted, and you played very safe, I must say. But we don't have a hamper here to give you, but virtually we are showing all our love and affection towards you. And and towards the end, I would
Thank you
just
so much.
like to ask that any special takeaway that you want to give to the audience or like to share something with them.
I guess I guess just four words that have stayed with me, and they've kind of resonated with me even during the pandemic period. Just to keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. Those are the four words that I keep talking to myself about. And you never know what kind of opportunities come your way and knock at your door. Just take them and grow. It's worked for me at least, and I would just say that I hope it works for each one of you. So that was a very yeah that was really, those were the four words that I wanted to sort of say as the takeaway. And thanks a lot for this. If any of the viewers or if any of the listeners would like to reach out to me, I'd like to tell them that Mitti Ke Rang has tagged me on all four platforms on their posts. So thank you for that. So I'm active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, as well as Twitter. So you can reach out to me in any of those platforms, and I'll be happy to help. So yes, thanks so much.
I would like to say something to the audience that check out a recent Instagram post. It's very beautiful. She has put the travel culture so beautifully. I have checked it out last night, so you should all do. And do read her LinkedIn blog. She has just
Thank
updated it
you.
again. And yeah, that was really nice talking to you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I'll get back to you though, about that question very soon. Once Kohima becomes a smart city.
Absolutely. You're waiting for that. Waiting for that. Thanks a ton, and thank you to the Mitti Ke Rang team for this. And thanks again to all the listeners and the viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Take care.
You too.